The talking, nagging, lucha watching, puro viewing, indie supporting, drinking, cursing, son of a gun of a podcast. Join former pro wrestler and promoter Dave Dynasty and co-host Ike Isaacs as they talk wrestling and interview those within the business, bringing positivity back to pro wrestling. This is the Dave Dynasty Show.
Greetings and welcome to the Dave Dynasty Show. This is your host, Dave Dynasty.
Joined as always by myself, Ike Isaacs. As usual, per usual. The regular scheduled programming. PBS. Public broadcasting. I don't know. I just thought I said PBS.
What happens when you talk too much?
PBS. PBR. PBR.
Whatever. Well, thank you for joining us, however you do, whether it be iTunes, SoundCloud, or YouTube. And whichever means you do, please subscribe, follow, like, leave a comment, and share. If you listen to us on iTunes, rate and review us. Visit us at davedynasty.com, where you can check out all of our sponsors, luchamaskusa.com, luchaloot.com, luchashop.com, lots of lucha. And there's also links for our highspots.com affiliate and amazon.com affiliate. And, of course, a link to buy our T-shirt from Pro Wrestling Tees. And while you're there, you can also find us links to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And please go to all those, like, follow, subscribe, and share. And if need be, send us an email at dave@davedynasty.com.
Always good stuff. Always good stuff. Website's like the ultimate way to get to anything we have. Everything and anything is on that website.
Links for everything there at davedynasty.com. You can find it all. We got a good show this week. We have Michael Kingston on. Yeah. Very cool interview. The creator of Headlocked comic. They're getting cool ready to put out some new stuff. Lots of stories written by many wrestlers. Of course, the covers for those are often done by Jerry the King Lawler.
The King Lawler.
This is kind of a double good one for us because we not only are we wrestling fans, but we're also comic book fans. So
oh yeah,
we're merging the worlds there as Michael Kingston has done, and it's very cool. So if you gotta pick a favorite, what's your favorite comic book character, Ike?
Oh man, I don't know. It's a hard one. I'm pretty partial to some of the obscure stuff. So like I like Hellblazer or John Constantine. I like him a lot. And I also like Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing.
Specifically Neil Gaiman's run on Swamp Thing, which was fantastic.
Yes. That was Alan Moore. Alan Moore did a great run too.
Well, yeah, Alan Moore was really good too.
Yeah, I like Green Lantern. Green Lantern is my favorite hero, but then I'm a sucker for all the old licensed property, the G.I. Joes, the Transformers, all the stuff from my childhood. Love all that. So, but well, you know, there's been a lot of comic books in wrestling over the years. The WWE's several times to put stuff out. WCW had a comic book for a while, and then of course in Mexico there's been Lucha comics for El Santo and Blue Demon and all that many times. But you know, I mean, WWE they have a comic out now.
Yeah.
But it is cool to kind of see Kingston doing this and kind of this different approach. You know, more independent type approach to the business, not like, you know, mainstream WWE produced thing. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool. And of course, when you get guys like Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, and Penta, and all these guys on board writing stories and being a part, that makes it even cooler.
Yeah, so he's got so many.
Cody
people
Rhodes, I think, was a part, or so many. Then
AJ Styles was on there at some point,
and then Christopher Daniels, and then of course Lawler. He's a hell of an artist. He always has been. Always does a lot of cool stuff. So him doing the covers is very cool. So, but yeah, we got that interview here in the show. We also got some new wisdom from Mance Warner.
Of course, old Mancer.
We got Mancer on, Lariats and Lightbeer himself. So yeah, he'll drop that wisdom. Last week they are. I don't know what they were doing, fighting aliens or some crap like that, or no, I don't remember what it was.
It wasn't aliens. I don't remember what it was. I think it was like some weird thing. It's always weird, but I can't remember what it was now. I'll have to look that up here in a minute.
But it's sure to be entertaining and,
of course,
maybe a little wisdom. Who knows? But yeah, so the interview with Kingston's kind of a long deal. So we're going to get right to it. We're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we have that interview with the Headlocked comic creator Michael Kingston. Stick around.
Visit LuchaMaskUSA.com for official high-quality Lucha masks and merchandise, straight from the luchadors themselves. They have a huge and always growing inventory, so check back often. That's LuchaMaskUSA.com.
And welcome back to the Dave Dynasty Show. I am your co-host, Ike Isaacs, and today we have a pretty awesome guest, someone who is a little off the beaten path, someone that's not necessarily a wrestler or an in-ring talent, but he's the creator of Headlocked Comics, Michael Kingston. How are we doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on after a little hiccup with the snowstorm there, but I'm glad.
No problem. Hey, that's one of the things that we kind of pride ourselves on, is that we're pretty flexible. We like working with people because, of course, it's awesome to have anybody on the show. So today we're going to get to know Michael. So for people who don't know him, you're going to get to know him today. But trust me, he's awesome. So how about we just jump right into it? So Michael, can you want to tell us about your first memory of watching wrestling?
Yeah, I remember I was a kid. I'm kind of dating myself a little bit here, but I was flipping channels and I came across the very first episode of Saturday Night's Main Event, and it was towards the end of the show, and it was the main event was or the match was George the Animal Steele and the Sheik and Volkov against Mike Rotundo, Barry Windham, and Ricky Steamboat. And it was towards the end of the match, and George the Animal Steele was in the process of a face turn, I guess, which I didn't know at the time. I didn't understand any of that, but I just saw this hairy dude like tearing up the ring and like running around like a madman. And I'd never seen anything like it. I was an 8-year-old boy, and I was completely transfixed. And the next morning, I found wrestling on, I think it was like Wrestling Challenge, or USA, I think, had Superstars. I don't remember I think that's what it was. And I watched it the next day, and I've watched it ever since in some form or another, for a lot of years.
Yeah.
30-some-odd years.
Absolutely, yeah. So is that when you got hooked? Is that when you were hooked, or was there like a time later on where you're just like, this is a passion?
No, I was hooked from day one.
Absolutely.
I've never looked back.
Yeah, and that's I think that's how it is with a lot of people. I mean, they basically just watch it once and they're like, this is awesome. But so you mentioned a couple wrestlers right there, but I don't know if you had any other favorites or people that you just really absolutely loved.
George, like I said, George Animal Steele is kind of what got me into wrestling. But then I really liked Tito Santana early on. I really liked. It was odd. Like one of the first wrestlers who really sort of caught my eye was Rick McGraw, Quick Draw McGraw.
Yeah.
And he's also like one of the first guys who died. So it was like he was like an early favorite from he used to be like in the mid card on all my house shows, and like I think realizing it now, like he had really good comebacks, but like really fiery comebacks. And I mean, as a kid you just like, oh, this, I like this guy, I don't know why, but he died fairly early on in my fandom. But yeah, Tito Santana, and then eventually I really liked you go through a phase, I think, where then you start to like the heels a little more. I liked Shawn Michaels and, Mick Foley, Mankind, as I work my way up and my sort of opinions of wrestling or feelings about wrestling changed, or what I got from it.
Yeah.
And then like maybe 2005, I discovered Ring of Honor, and then Samoa Joe was my favorite wrestler for quite a long time. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's been cool.
Yeah, definitely. Ring of Honor. That was probably, I don't remember now. I can't remember what year it started, but yeah, that's probably pretty close to when Ring of Honor kind of first got big, wasn't it?
Yeah, they started in 2004. I think I had heard about Joe and Punk doing the hour match in the Observer or whatever, and like 2000, like that era of WWE was like, such a boring time. Like I was so burnt out on wrestling, and like that was the point where I almost, I probably the closest I've ever come to walking away. And I was a regular reader of the Observer, and then I was like, oh, let me see what else is out there. And I ordered a couple DVDs, and I was like, wow, this stuff is amazing. And then I started going to shows and started, and that sort of, that opened up the whole indies to me. Then I discovered Chikara, which I loved, and, everything else. And that's sort of, I don't know, Headlocked probably wouldn't exist if it wasn't for that moment. So I always say that I credit, Punk Joe and Gabe Sapolsky for really, saving my love of wrestling and, pushing it to what it is now.
Yeah, definitely. So, and also you mentioned Headlock. So, let's kind of dive into that a little bit. For those of you who don't know, that is a comic book. Headlock is a comic book. When did you become a comic book fan and reader?
Again, probably about the same time I was a wrestling fan, maybe a little longer. I mean, okay. I had comic books that I had gotten from like the drugstore or whatever, and then I started reading them, and I sort of probably became a regular collector somewhere in the in that 8, 9, 10 years old range. I'd always been a reader, even as a kid. Like when I was I think when I was in like 3rd grade, I had like a 12th grade reading level. So it's always, and I attribute that to comics, and like I used to read like Hardy Boys books, which mean something different to people now, but adult detective novels.
Yeah.
So I'd always been a reader, and like I loved comics, and I had a sort of similar journey with comics as I had with wrestling, where I read superhero comics for a long time, but then it wasn't until I discovered other comics other than superhero comics. And like for me, the real tipping point was Concrete, Think Like a Mountain by Paul Chadwick. Like that really sort of totally blew my mind. It was like, oh man, comics doesn't have to just be superheroes. And like that started me on a whole journey of other types of comics other than superhero comics. Like I said, the journey was very similar through comics and wrestling, and then at some point I decided I wanted to do one.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I definitely relate to you with that, because I know personally I kind of stopped watching wrestling around that period there, and I just started watching wrestling about 3 years ago. I mean, so like I didn't watch wrestling for almost 10 years personally, and same thing with comics. I read comics when I was little, but then I didn't start reading them again until I started reading stuff like Neil Gaiman's Swamp Thing, and then like some of the other off the beaten path kind of stuff, because you're just like, this is kind of boring.
Well, there just comes a point where, I mean, to me with superhero comics, like they just kept getting more and more interconnected, and I can't read, to this day, I can't really read like tentpole books where you have to buy like 14 issues to read the whole story, and there's crossovers and all of that. Like as far as like Marvel and DC goes, like I can read a single title, if it sort of, if it's kept to itself and I can get into it. But, there just came a point where everything felt so editorially driven, and you could sort of feel the, it's crossover time, and we're starting to bend our story into it, and it just became too much. So, yeah, I mean, they said Concrete, Preacher, Transmetropolitan, I mean, a lot of Vertigo stuff, and then eventually, Image started putting out better books, and then that just sort of, that changed everything for me. So that was really cool.
Yeah, definitely. I think I know especially with comic books nowadays. I know they've not recently, but years ago they did the reboots. Marvel Now, the New 52. I know that for a while they're doing pretty good with the whole, hey, let's not connect every, pardon my language, but every fucking book that there is imaginable. But now it's gotten bad again. So I understand where you're coming from there, definitely. But and
it's just tough because like it's an industry that it's so dominated. The comics industry is very much like the wrestling industry, and that it's sort of dominated by this singular aesthetic. Like no one thinks of History of Violence as a comic book movie, or Road to Perdition, or Ghost World, or whatever. But everybody thinks of Green Lantern, or I think more people probably think of Hancock as a comic book movie, and I don't even think that was a comic book. No,
I don't think it was.
Like, there comes a point where I think comic books equal superheroes, and that's it. And obviously you can tell other types of stories in comic books, just like you can tell other stories in wrestling, without sort of using the WWE style. So, I mean, like Lucha Underground has been a perfect example of that, or, Chikara, or, any international wrestling all over the country, or all over the world. So I think that, and that's the hard part, I think, about anything is a lot of people say they're wrestling fans, but they're not wrestling fans. They're WWE fans.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say that they're comic book fans, but they're not comic book fans. They're superhero fans. So it's tricky.
No, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it was until I started working at a comic book store that I actually started, thinking, well, it's not just Batman and the X-Men. It's, Why the Last Man, Dark Horse comics, the Star Trek comic books, The Walking Dead. And there was so many more things out there. And I definitely see where you're coming from. It's definitely like, hey, I'm not a comic book fan. I'm specifically a Batman fan, or I'm specifically an X-Men fan. And I think that's an issue today. Go ahead.
Okay, this is what's tricky to me about comics is that no other medium is sorted by publisher.
Yeah.
Like, you don't go to a bookstore and be like, yo, where are the Random House books at? Like, they're sorted by genre. And, like, so if you watch, and like, people are always like, well, how come the success of comic book properties on TV hasn't translated? I mean, if you listen to the, for people that are paying attention to the stories that I told about how I got into things, like, I got into comics because of, they were at a drugstore. I didn't go out to buy comics. Yeah. And I got into wrestling because it was on network television. I didn't go looking for it, like it happened to be put in front of me and I was like, oh, I love this. But now, I mean, if you want to read comics, you have to go to a specialty shop and then everything again is sorted by publisher. So if you see Walking Dead, you're like, oh, I want to buy those comics. You go to the store and you look for Walking Dead, you're going to find other Image books or books that begin with a W instead of being sorted with horror comics. Because maybe, if you like Walking Dead, you dig like what Avatar does or whatever, but you might not see those because there's 1,000 books on the shelf all sorted in some weird, vague way. And that's frustrating to me. I mean, especially because, I publish a drama. And I don't think too many people publish like straight dramatic comics. Even the non-superhero books or some sort of a genre book like crime or romance or whatever. But I mean, we're just doing a straight drama, and there's not a whole lot of them out there. So it's a tricky sell with people, but we make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, I was going to ask you. This is something that I heard rumors recently. We're talking about how the media of wrestling is very much dominated by, the WWE, the Vince McMahon brand. That's what dominates wrestling media. So lately I've heard rumors that I think it's Sinclair Broadcasting has been talking to the WWE about some kind of deal where the WWE wants to buy Ring of Honor. Well, that obviously this is just rumors. This is just rumored upon. But people are thinking that, well, either A, it's going to be a broadcast deal where, hey, that their pay-per-views and their live events will be on the WWE Network, or they're just going to straight up buy Ring of Honor. So what do you think about that?
I mean, I don't ever like giving people less options to work. I think that, wrestling fans are a tricky bunch. They'll complain about competition, but then at the same time they'll cheer when, companies get gobbled up. And that's not good for anybody. I don't see a broadcast deal likely because Sinclair's a broadcasting company, so I don't know the point of them giving up broadcasting rights while maintaining a wrestling company. I mean, to me, the tape library would be valuable since half of the the old rosters in WWE now, and you could get a lot of guys' old matches and stuff. And they could probably get some value out of that. But I mean, I feel like that's just I feel like we're going through a period where it's like the 80s, only on the indies, where they're just raiding all the territories. And, I mean, it took 10 years for the indie scene to sort of build itself back up. I mean, it took like ECW and Christopher Daniels and Reckless Youth and, Mike Quackenbush and those guys, like, out, it took them to rebuild the indies from, it was kind of a wasteland for a while. And I worry that we're going to go back to that. I mean, it took 15 years of for the indies to sort of develop into what they've developed into, and then to pick all that talent all at once is tricky. I mean, I don't know. I mean, indie wrestling is still a great entry point into people's, for people to get into wrestling. Sometimes people end up at shows, or you go to a show. Like, I've brought a ton of people to indie wrestling shows and have it be their first experience, their first live experience to wrestling. Like, as an art form, I equate wrestling to jazz music in that it loses something when it's recorded.
Yeah.
Like, I love wrestling and I'll watch it, obviously, but there's no better way to see wrestling than to see it live. I mean, it's truly an art form that you should consume live. Just like jazz music. I mean, if you go to a jazz concert, or you're at a bar and a jazz band is playing, you're like, man, this is awesome. Like, I love jazz, but then when you listen to it recorded, like, it's elevator music.
Yeah.
And you lose some of the soul of wrestling, and even in the big arena shows and stuff like that, it's just not the same. Like, I think that small 1,500 seat arena, like, I feel like that's the ideal, to me, the ideal way to watch wrestling. So, I mean, I would definitely, it definitely would be out to see, but
yeah,
I don't know, for giving the boys more options to work.
Yeah, definitely.
ROH, even Impact was a, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, go ahead. You continue with your thought.
ROH, like, even ROH and Impact were options for guys. Like, I know ROH was a great option for the Young Bucks so they could spend time with their families.
Yeah.
And guys that had outside projects, work for Impact because, I mean, at least they could at one point, because it wasn't such a demanding schedule.
Yeah.
But if everything just becomes WWE, it's just you're in the meat grinder, and I don't know if that's necessarily good for anyone.
Yeah, I agree. I think that right now especially, I mean, if you look at the old era, like the 80s and the 70s and stuff of independent wrestling, you had the concept of, if you work for this person in this territory, you basically belong to them. They own you, And I feel like we're starting to kind of revert back to that old style of thinking because of how competitive things are being. I mean, you see people signing deals with Ring of Honor, for instance, or deals with Impact, and I mean, it's not a bad thing. Definitely, it's not a bad thing to do. But I feel like eventually it's going to resort to, hey, you can only work for us now because we can't have you being spread out to all these other people. And I don't necessarily think that I don't think Ring of Honor will start that, but I definitely think that everyone's going to start reverting back to that old style of thinking because of like you said, because of the meat grinder. I mean,
no, Ring of Honor does have exclusive deals.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the Bucks are under an exclusive deal, and I think Daniels and Kaz are. So,
yeah.
I mean, they do have guys that are exclusive, and I think some guys prefer that. There's probably you can probably make a larger percentage without having to kill yourself on the indies. So it's I don't like the guy the Impact deal where they feel like they're going to try to take 10% of your bookings. Like, I think that's kind of lame. But it's tough. I mean, and I think it's funny because you have a guy like, you had guys like Cole Cabana. Like, I think Cole Cabana and Zack Ryder were like the sort of first wave of guys who sort of brought power back to the wrestlers, and then with Pro Wrestling Tees, then you saw the evolution like the Bucks and Joey Ryan, following that up. And I feel like what Cody's been doing is, and sort of like the next level of that, where he has enough goodwill with everybody that he can work Ring of Honor and Impact and PWG in Japan and pretty much go anywhere he wants and not get flack. I feel like that was starting to be like a real evolution where he's having a multi-federation or whatever, a multi-promotion feud with Joey Ryan that's happening across companies. And, it was almost starting to really sort of challenge the power structure and put more, you could almost have like an Image Comics renaissance in wrestling, where the creators sort of took power away, or, the power away from the publishers, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel like I feel like that was like a step in the right direction, but I still think that, and to some merit, to some extent almost, that, well, like you said, for some people it's like, hey, this is a good thing, people, signing up to do these smaller, like not necessarily smaller promotions, but these lesser known promotions, because obviously people don't know PWG, Ring of Honor, as well as they know like WWE, because like you said, they're not wrestling fans, they're WWE fans. So I definitely see kind of almost a regression happening. Hopefully I'm wrong, but definitely I feel like you said, they're challenging the power structure, they're challenging the big publishers, if you will. But
the worst thing for me is the wrestling fan mentality of, like, people were screaming about the Divas Revolution and we want women's wrestling, and like, I mean, Shimmer's been around since 2005. I mean, Dave Prazak literally was giving people what they wanted, and people are like, yeah, I don't want to watch it there. I'm just going to scream about this thing I hate for 10 years until it becomes, until they eventually listen. And like, that to me is insane. Like, if you're a content provider and people are screaming for something and they're like, no, I don't want that content from you. I only want it from this one place. Like, that's a tough mentality to overcome, because I mean, when you see how popular women's wrestling has become, and you realize, like, oh yeah, I mean, Shimmer's been around for 12 years now, I think, and like that sort of thing frustrates me a little bit. And I'm not sure, it's the same thing. Like, if people had just supported Ring of Honor back in 2005 when it was taking off, I mean, you would have had NXT. 10 years earlier, you would have had Joe and Punk and Dragon and all those guys in their primes, doing it all up. And, unfortunately, like, they had to go to Impact. Then it looked like Impact could have been the next Ring of Honor, because they were pushing all the X Division stuff. And then they went, they brought in Hogan, and everything sort of went to where, to the sort of WWE light thing. And it's tough. Like, if people would just support the things that they say they want, but I think sometimes people aren't really self-aware. I think people convince them. You'll hear people all the time complaining about sequels and remakes and reboots and whatever, but how many people support original content, Yeah. So it's tough. It's a tough mentality to deal with brand slaves.
no, I definitely agree. Actually, I think I can't remember who I talked this about, but I'd always tell people one of the worst things to ever happen, because I used to love TNA. That was one of the last things I watched before I completely stopped watching wrestling for a long time. And I love TNA because, like you said, I love the X Division stuff. I love seeing those guys in there. I love seeing the talent, and maybe not X Division, but, I love the wrestlers, Christopher Daniels, Petey Williams, all these people that were absolutely just amazing wrestlers. But then they started bringing in these honestly washed-up wrestlers like Hulk Hogan, who, when he came in, wanted creative rights, and he wanted to rule over the company, and he just absolutely just fucked it, honestly. That was honestly one of the worst things.
The thing that really sort of crystallized it for me was, I remember I went to a TNA house show because I was friends with a bunch of guys, and there was a match on the show, and it was Shark Boy against Jay Lethal against Petey Williams. And I was like, you've got a guy pretending to be Steve Austin, wrestling a guy pretending to be Scott Steiner, wrestling a guy pretending to be Randy Savage. And you know what I mean? Like, at some point, it's too much. Like, I felt like everybody had some sort of a rip-off gimmick. And it was just too much. They had some good opportunities. I mean, they had some real moments. Like, I remember the first Samoa Joe Kurt Angle thing where Joe headbutted him and then he was bleeding and he came up behind him. Like, that was as perfect of a way to start that feud. And, and then they had the confrontation with Ric Flair and Jay Lethal. Like, those were like star-making moments that they never followed up on. And they tried to follow up on Joe versus Angle, but I mean, having Kurt Angle win the first match was killed the entire feud. Yeah. So it's a shame, because they had some real moments and they had real opportunities and they had real talent and they let it slip away. But I think, that's the thing that people don't understand. You know, people blame talent for things and whatever, but I mean, like you see it right now with SmackDown. I mean, when the roster split, I mean, SmackDown got AJ Styles and Dean Ambrose and every stale and played out character on the roster. You know, I mean, Cena had been run into the ground, and you had Orton and Wyatt and Miz and all these guys that had been around forever, and they revitalized all of them. Like, everybody in SmackDown is stronger than when they got there.
Yeah.
I mean, Ambrose is just as hot, but everybody else is hotter, and they've done a great job with the writing and putting guys in position and telling compelling stories. And then when you contrast that with Raw, and you think about, you know, when Raw happened, when the brand split happened, I mean, New Day was super over. You know, they've gotten Strowman over, but I mean, it doesn't take a genius to get Braun Strowman over. But I mean, New Day was super hot, and Sasha was super hot, and I mean, they've already kind of burned through Sasha and Bayley.
Yeah.
I mean, Bayley to me could end up being like the biggest missed opportunity in like the history of wrestling. I mean, she should have been John Cena for little girls. I almost think they should have taken the women's division and split it completely off from WWE and tried to negotiate like a Saturday morning spot and make Bayley, you know, the Hulk Hogan of the thing. And, you know, Charlotte and Paige could have been like the heels, and Sasha could have been a tweener, whatever. But like you could have excited a whole new generation of wrestling fans that would, you know, like they did in Japan years ago. And I don't know. It's sad to see her sort of fall victim to the crummy storytelling that they have on Raw, and it's a shame.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, first of all, I think SmackDown is a much better brand. I enjoy SmackDown. Like, I purposely don't watch Raw sometimes because I just don't like it. I mean, I like some of the talent that's on there. I like Anderson and Gallows. I like Cesaro, Sheamus. I mean, I can name some other people. I like Seth Rollins, but it's like, I feel like if they made it all just the SmackDown roster, it would be better.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's a tough. It's upsetting. Like they know what to do because they do it for the right people. You know, like they've done a really good job in the last month anyway of Triple H and Rollins of like building that the right way. Like, and I feel like, you know, when certain talent that has a little more say over their storylines get involved, you know, they don't necessarily mess it up. I mean, they've done a consistently good job with Brock Lesnar. You know, they know how to do it, and it's frustrating to watch them mess up opportunities. Like, I feel like Heath Slater had a real opportunity to get over with the free agent thing, and, you know, with the Brock Lesnar when he ran out to confront Brock Lesnar and Lesnar beat him up. Like, they had a real opportunity to put Heath Slater on another level. And I'm not saying that Heath Slater's ever going to be carrying a brand or whatever, but just to make him into, you know, an upper mid-card guy that people care about, you know, instead of like a weird comedy act. I don't know. You know, it's as a storyteller, it's always frustrating to me to see them squander stories just because, I mean, guys burn through so much stuff. You know, they burn through so many characters so quick. And then and then they end up thrown back out on the indies, and then you see, and then they have to take more talent, you know. Yeah. Whereas, I mean, if you see it like with SmackDown, like I said, they made the most out of everybody they had, and you know, that sort of thing. Like I said, as a storyteller, it frustrates me. So,
No, yeah, I 100% agree with you. So we've kind of jumped off on a tangent. That was a good tangent though. But I kind of want to redirect this a little bit because I want to talk a little bit about your work and what you do. So we kind of talked about, you know, you kind of moved through comic books and you moved through wrestling and you did all this stuff. And as people know, you're a creator. You know, you've been talking about how, you know, as a creative mind, you do certain things and you see certain things, and definitely you put it into work. You do that for yourself. So, you have a comic book, So when did you know you wanted to work in comic books? Because obviously there had to have been some point that you said, "Hey, I want to do this."
Yeah, it was concrete. Think Like a Mountain. Reading that book, like, I was like, man, this is so cool. Like, it's a cool story, but you're kind of learning something, and like, I don't know, like, I felt like I could do that with wrestling. Like, if you've been a wrestling fan for any length of time, you have to defend it to at least 50% of the people that you know.
Yeah.
And part of what I wanted to do with Headlocked was tell an entertaining story that sort of sneakily educated people to exactly what wrestling is. Because to 50% of the population, it's oiled up hairless men pretending to hit each other. And it's, to some people it doesn't even go that far. Like, some people are just like, oh, it's fake, it's dumb, it's lowbrow, and whatever. So, my idea was, and part of it too was there was a history of just awful wrestling comics. I bought every wrestling comic that ever came out, and there was Undertaker fighting demons, and Kevin Nash as Mad Max, and Ultimate Warrior stripping Santa Claus naked and stealing his suit, and none of them were ever like, they were never books for wrestling fans. They were probably books for, I don't know. I don't know if they were books for anybody, because honestly, none of them did very well.
Yeah.
So, we're about to publish, chapters 17 through 20. I don't know, or 16 through 20. I don't know how many wrestling comics have that kind of longevity. So,
very few.
Maybe The Undertaker made it that far with that Chaos line, but I am unsure. I don't think anybody else has made it to that level. So, but it came apparent to me that no one was ever going to make the wrestling comic that I wanted to read. And as a wrestling fan, I knew that there was an audience for, you go to Comic Cons and there's tons of wrestling shirts, and you go to wrestling shows and there's tons of comic shirts. The crossover's there. It's just nobody ever did it the right way.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do that. So I made my own wrestling comic, and, it's done okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So, pardon me. So, have you done any other comic book works at all other than Headlocked? I don't know if you've ever done anything else other than just that.
I've done a couple of licensed things for people, but a lot of it, like freelance work, but a lot of it's for people that, I don't know, a lot of it never saw the light of day. Actually, my weird sort of side dream project after Headlocked would be to do Leprechaun. And I know that sounds like an odd thing, but
like the horror.
At one point, yeah, the horror series with Warwick Davis, and there was somebody had bought the license. I think it was Blue Water, and I had gotten permission or whatever. I had been picked to write it from issue 5 going forward. And I had all these great ideas. Like, my first story arc was essentially Leprechaun versus the Real Housewives of Orange County. And it was probably, listen, I love the work I've done on Headlock, but I think this was probably the best thing I ever wrote.
Really?
And it was so much fun, and it was so over the top and ridiculous. Like, he's jumping out of the cake at, like, the guy's daughter's super sweet 16 party, and, like, massacring, like, shitty rich teens, and it was super fun, and everybody that read it loved it. But unfortunately, the book got canceled before my book came out, because I don't know, the guy that did the first arc tried to make Leprechaun a good guy, and it was awful. So unfortunately, and then WWE bought the rights, and I had like a pang of hope that I could somehow get involved with it and get my vision sort of involved with it, but they wanted to do an origin story, it's just awful. Like, the whole concept of Leprechaun works, you know what I mean? Like, when you examine it for too long, I think it falls apart. The whole, you just have to accept that, there's a murderous leprechaun, and if you steal his gold, he's going to kill you. Like, once you accept that, it's fun, but trying to explain it, I think, takes the fun out of it.
Yeah. I that's actually funny that you said Leprechaun, because that's probably one of my favorite horror movies. Like, it's so campy and cheesy, but it's probably in my top 5. the original Leprechaun movie with Jennifer Aniston, I think, is just absolutely awesome. But
I'm a big fan of Leprechaun in Space. Believe it or not,
that's so funny. It's a funny movie, honestly, but it's so campy and horror-like that you can't help but love it.
Yeah, no, and that's what I was doing with the Leprechaun and the Real Housewives of Orange County. Like it was like a sort of an attack on conspicuous consumption, and he's taking a like a weird new age guru life coach type of dude, and stuffing his head up his ass, and driving over people's stuff with a big Hummer, and just it was fun, and there was a lot of cool social commentary in it, and I don't know, like everybody loved it. He killed Kanye West, or a Kanye West analog. It was good. It was good, and people loved it. And it was a shame that it never got to see the light of day, but maybe someday.
I'm actually legitimately a little depressed that I cannot read this. A little bit depressed, a little bit, because that sounds incredible. Man, but definitely, wow. Yeah, that's really funny that you say Leprechaun, because like I said, that's probably, I'm a huge horror movie buff. I've watched a lot of them, and that honestly chaps my ass just a little bit. But, all right, well, okay, so let's talk about Headlocked a little bit, other than talking about the Leprechaun. So for those who don't know, can you tell just a slight overview about what Headlocked is?
Headlocked is the story of a kid who's a college theater major. He unexpectedly falls in love with wrestling. He's got sort of the standard shitty attitude about wrestling, and he goes to a show one night sort of against his will, and then when he's there, he falls in love with it, and he gets the bug, and he becomes obsessed with wrestling and decides that he wants to become a wrestler, and he quits school, and in his head he's like, oh, I've got 2 semesters of stage combat, like this is going to be a breeze, and we drop him into the middle of the wrestling business and watch him sort of navigate his way through the business. But as he learns so he's basically starting as a blank slate. So you sort of learn the craft of wrestling through the eyes of a performance artist, but at the same time, navigating the sort of the underbelly of the business kind of drives the story. And then the other cool thing is that all the art now is done by wrestlers.
Yeah.
So Jerry the King Lawler does the covers, and then the interiors are done by Mikel Molopolo, who's a Samoan wrestler from New Zealand, former tag champ with Haku. And, so like to me, that's, we're telling a story about the art of wrestling, and all the art's done by wrestlers. Like that, I don't know. Like I love that. That makes me so happy. Like anytime a wrestler comes to me and says, I want to do a piece of art for your book. Like we have Fred Ottman, Tugboat, the Shockmaster, doing a piece of art for our next book, and Lince Dorado, and it always makes me happy when I meet a wrestler that has art skills.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, you just dropped like a bunch of like awesome names there. So obviously you've worked with some pretty noteworthy wrestlers, and can you tell us some more of them, or is there any other big names that you can think of?
Oh yeah. I mean, so when I started Headlocked, there was no names. It was just me selling a book in Artist Alley. This is before Mikel, before anybody. I mean, I had an artist, a Filipino artist named Randy Valiente, he's worked for Dynamite now. He did our first thing, and our first arc, and we put it out. And I started going to shows, and like I would meet the wrestlers who loved comics. They would come. They'd be at Comic Cons like as fans, and they would buy copies of my books. So like, I sold a copy to Shane Helms, and I sold a copy to Rob Van Dam and Christopher Daniels, and then I hooked up with Jerry Lawler to do the covers, and that was a crazy deal. Like I had just sent him a blind email through his website. Like I forgot I did it after I did it, and he's such a big comic fan, and he was totally down to do it. And then so from there, like, we just started building an audience. Like I pitched it to everybody in comics, and I mean, we got turned down in like the shittiest and most spectacular fashion. I mean, there was a guy from a top, one of the top publishers in comics literally laughed in my face. A guy that runs a comic store in my own town was like, he said to me, like, he wouldn't even stock it on consignment. He was like, I can't see anybody ever wanting to read this. And so like I said, I knew there was an audience for it. So I just one reader at a time, I started going to wrestling shows and Comic Cons, and I just took it to the people. And then once Kickstarter became a viable option, all these guys who really liked what I was doing had said, anything I can do to help out, let me know. So then I got the idea that, I'll tell my story, and then we'll do bonus content with stories from the wrestlers. So, our first Kickstarter, we did Hurricane, Rob Van Dam, Christopher Daniels contributed short stories to the books, and then Sam Shaw and Sin Bodhi and Ken Anderson had done art for it. And then the next volume, we had AJ Styles, John Morrison, Frankie Kazarian on stories, Booker T, Tony Atlas, and then Kayleen Croft from the Dude Busters, who's now like an art teacher in Tampa, they had done art for it. And then we remastered our first book after that, and we had Samoa Joe, MVP, and the Young Bucks doing stories, and then like a gallery of independent wrestlers. And then for the book that we're currently kickstarting, like this is where things start to go off the rails. Like we have like the most insane lineup ever for this book. We have stories from Ric Flair, Mick Foley, Cody Rhodes, Kenny Omega, and if we hit our first stretch goal, Penta L0M, the former Pentagon Jr., who is in a trademark dispute over his name. Tugboat is doing art. Lindsay Dorado is doing art. And then from comics now, we didn't get respect from comics for a long time, and this is the first time where we're starting to get a little respect from the comic book industry. We got Ed McGuinness, who's like one of the big creative forces behind Deadpool. Ed McGuinness, Robbie Rodriguez, who's co-creator of Spider-Gwen, Andy Belanger, who's he's the artist on Southern Cross for Image Comics, but also an independent wrestler in Montreal.
Oh, okay.
And I just added Raphael Albuquerque from American Vampire, which is one of my favorite books, and I'm super excited about. And then obviously we still have Jerry on the cover, and I didn't even mention Jill Thompson does our credit breaks or chapter breaks. So it's a stacked lineup. It's like from front to back, it's a total murderer's row, and I can't even believe that I have this lineup working on Headlocked when I know what I started doing.
Yeah, definitely. You're, what's the word I'm trying to look for? The way you say it and the way you're presenting this to me, it sounds like it was the hardest thing to bridge that gap between wrestlers, wrestling fans, and comic books.
More so the comic book industry, I barely exist in comics. Even now, I don't put my book through comic book stores. I've used Kickstarter as a pre-order to sort of work our way around it, and then I found a lot of different wrestling outlets to buy my books. And now, just now, retailers are starting to contact me to try to get books in the stores. But I don't use Diamond, and ultimately, all of those failures, or whatever obstacles, forced me to make the book stronger. So, back in 2008, if, say Image had picked up my first books, the first series, we would have been in stores and we would have been out of stores. We would have run a couple issues, sales would have flagged off like every other comic book series, and then it would have been done, and I'd be out of comics now. But because of the way that comics has treated me, it's forced me to do things differently and to build a stronger franchise. And now I feel like we're in a pretty good place to where people know us as a brand. Still miles to go. Every Kickstarter is still a struggle. Even with Ric Flair and Kenny Omega and whoever attached to the book, it's still, I'm still a non-WWE, non-mainstream comic, and I still have to fight that sort of stigma. But yeah, it's been a grind. I work 70 hours a week at a regular job, and then I'm gone almost every weekend to get in front of people, because that's how you have to get people's attention. There's so many things out there vying for people's attention. So, they say a tweet lasts 17 seconds. You know, I'm fortunate that I live in Albany, New York, so I'm about 3 hours from everywhere in the Northeast. I'm not an hour from anywhere, but I'm 3 hours from everywhere. So,
Yeah.
you know, I can go to New Jersey or Connecticut or Providence or Philly or, you know, wherever to sling my wares. And, you know, it's a 6-hour commitment in the car, but, you know, you got to make that personal connection with people, and you got to let them know what you're all about. And I think that's what's helped me. That's what's helped me sort of build what we've built so far.
Absolutely. So you mentioned your Kickstarter, and you mentioned all this other stuff, and like obviously this is, like you said, this has been a grind. So where can like fans purchase Headlocked, and also how can people help like contribute to this?
So we're on Kickstarter right now. I think we're at $16,000 out of $20,000. We've got maybe 40 days to go. But what I do with the Kickstarter, like all the wrestlers I've mentioned that have contributed, aside from Jerry Lawler, because he's on his cover's on every book, is the short stories and the art that the wrestlers provide are only available through Kickstarter. Okay. So otherwise, you know, you run the risk of people like, oh, I'll get you at the next convention, or I'll get to you eventually. And we need to sell, you know, essentially sell a certain amount of books to fund the production of it. Like, comic books are not cheap. Like, we're raising $20,000. I personally won't see a dime of it, and some money will still come out of my pocket at the end of this. So it's, you know, I have to pay, you know, all these artists. I mean, a lot of the wrestlers do this because they like, you know, they either know me and respect me, or they're really excited about working in comics or doing a comic. A lot of them will do it, you know, for just to do it, which really is amazing to me, the sort of goodwill that I've been able to engender with a lot of wrestlers. But, you know, so for people who back the Kickstarter, they get the best version of the book. They get, you know, the rarest version of the book. I mean, I print, you know, 7,000 copies of the standard edition of Headlocked, and I probably will only print maybe 1,000 copies of the Kickstarter version. So you're essentially getting a variant with all the best content for the same price that you would get the regular book if you were to buy it from me off my web store. So to me, it's an amazing deal. And if you buy older versions of the book through the Kickstarter, they're still the Kickstarter versions. So even though we're kickstarting the 4th volume of Headlocked, you can pledge to get the first volume of Headlocked in this campaign and get the Kickstarter version, even though you weren't around for the original Kickstarter. So I try to make everything as accessible as possible for everybody, and I try to make it as cool as possible for people who help us out when we need it the most.
Absolutely, yeah. So what is your what's your website again? Do you know it off the top of your head where people can go buy this?
All of my stuff is Headlocked Comic. The Kickstarter, you have to go to Kickstarter.com and search for Headlocked the Hard Way, or if you go to our Facebook and Twitter, there's links everywhere, or Instagram. You know, it's our bio link, the Kickstarter, and it's really cool. You know, the stories I get to do with these wrestlers. You know, in addition, I mean, I think Headlocked is a cool story, and people seem to like it. I mean, I'd say we have, universally positive sort of, you know, reviews. Yeah. But you know, the wrestling content is definitely worth your time. You know, I did Emerald City Comic Con with Ric Flair a couple weeks ago, and we worked out a story, and it's awesome. And I think it's not going to be what people expect from a Ric Flair story, but it's going to be cool. AJ Styles story, the story that we put together, is hilarious. It's one of my favorites. It's funny. And then the story we did with Shane Helms, which actually you can see the story we did with Shane Helms. We made a motion comic of it, and we put it on YouTube. We literally worked it out. He called me from the doctor's office while he was waiting for an MRI on his neck, not knowing if he was going to be able to wrestle again. And we worked out this story, and the story in and of itself is a powerful story, but then when you understand the context in which it was told, it really adds like a whole other level of emotional weight to it. And it's awesome. It's on our YouTube channel, which is also Headlocked Comic, and it's called Headlocked Undefeated. And said, we were able to make a motion comic and add some voices to it. Kevin Gill from the Kevin Gill Show provides a voice in it, and we found a really cool child actor who's amazing for what we're able to do with our budget, and it's really it's a fun deal. I think people that'll give you sort of an idea of what we're doing with the extra content.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it sounds incredible. I'm gonna have to check this out, and definitely we'll include all your links and whatnot and whatever we post with this, of course, because we're all about supporting stuff like this, because this is something that's going to make a positive impact, first of all, because you have a comic book that's going to make people say, well, hey, comic books are awesome. But you're also, spreading the good word of how wrestling is incredible art form, is an incredible, facet to look at. So definitely.
We're sort of a sneaky gateway drug for a lot of people. There's two things that I'm most proud of on this entire journey. Like, one is that, like, I've been welcomed into a lot of wrestling locker rooms, and I think, as a guy who writes stuff, and, I took a couple bumps when I decided I was going to write the book, but nothing too intense. That means a lot to me, just knowing the culture of wrestling and whatever. And then the other thing is that I would wager that we're a ton of people's first comic book.
Yeah.
And I remember what that did for me. I mean, I know people who've become comic book fans because of Headlocked. And I know, I still remember to this day, the first comic book I ever picked up was a Spider-Man book that he was fighting Captain America on the cover. And I knew of both Spider-Man and Captain America. And I was like, why are these guys fighting? But I still have it. It's destroyed. I've had it since I was 7. I mean, but I still have that book, and you never forget that.
Yeah.
And we've been a ton of people's first comic books, and that makes me feel really proud. For me, I didn't pick up the first comic book because of the guy that wrote it. I picked it up because I knew those characters. You know what I mean? A lot of people will gravitate towards books because of the characters more than the creators. But I mean, obviously, a lot of people have read Headlocked because of the story that, our story sort of in getting it off the ground and whatever, and all of that stuff makes me really super proud to having been able to get to where we've gotten.
Yeah, definitely. So, kind of along the same lines, people obviously, you go to these conventions, you do all this kind of stuff so that people can kind of see who you are, see what you're doing. So, where can fans see you this spring and summer so they can come meet you, come see you, and, do all that?
We have a really extensive tour, while the Kickstarter is going. I'm actually on the road 5 of the next 6 weeks. This weekend, we're at Capitol Wrestling in New Jersey. I'm actually really excited. It's a debut indie show, and it's probably the most excited I've been to go to an indie show in a long time. I like the vibe that they're giving off, and they've got, they're bringing barbecue and they've got a blues band, and I don't know. It's really cool. I think it's going to be really different, and I think I'm going to be kind of excited to be there for the first show.
Man, barbecue, blues, and wrestling.
Yeah. They're definitely, because that's what you got to do. You got to improve the live experience for people.
Yeah.
People talk about that with PWG, the live experience is what it's all about. And I think that they're doing something really smart now, and I hope it really works for them. And then we'll be at WrestleMania. I'll be at WrestleCon from 9 to 4 with MVP and Tugboat. And then we'll be doing, I'll be selling at Evolve and Chicago events after that, and Beyond on Saturday night. We've got SuperCon Retro with Booker T 2 weeks after WrestleMania, and then C2E2 with, right now, Jerry Lawler, Lita, Gene Okerlund, and we've got a couple more names we're working on. And then the week after that, we'll be at Planet Comic-Con in Kansas City with Ric Flair and Jerry Lawler. We've got San Diego Comic-Con in the summer, Awesome Con in the summer in D.C., Florida SuperCon, Raleigh SuperCon in North Carolina, which is going to be our first trip to North Carolina. So we're all over the place. New York Comic-Con is our big event every year. So we've got it. We've got a lot of cool events. One of the things I've tried to do with Headlocked, in as much as I say that wrestling didn't do comics right, they also didn't do Comic Cons right.
Yeah.
Cole Cabana used to call it Sad Wrestler Alley. And it was kind of true. And one of the things I've tried to do with our Headlocked booth is to, sort of give wrestling fans a place to be welcomed and to have some. One of the things that we've tried to do with Headlocked is sort of, when I say wrestling, comics didn't do wrestling the right way. They also didn't do wrestling the right way in Comic-Cons. And, one of the things that used to be prevalent was sad wrestler alley and not being excited and, whatnot. And one of the things we've tried to do is create a more positive experience for wrestling fans at Comic-Cons by having, we have wrestling art and we have wrestlers and, these big events, and it's fun and exciting. In New York Comic-Con, we had Mick and Noel Foley and Jerry Lawler and Ric Flair and Joey Styles and Christian, and it was an insane lineup. We try to film little stupid skits at the shows. We did a skit with Noel Foley and Jill Thompson getting into a cat fight, and my artist and I did a mock Glorious Bomb with Christian that got the boys, popped the boys a little bit. So. We try to bring a fun, inviting atmosphere for wrestling fans at Comic-Cons, just because, a lot of times you won't find anything, or if you do find something, like you say, it's Virgil in the corner or whatever. So it's, we've tried to make things better for fans, for wrestling fans all the way around.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've actually, there's a picture online somewhere, I can't remember what it is, but it's literally Virgil sitting at a booth just looking a little depressed.
Oh yeah, Lonely Virgil. It's a Tumblr. There's a Tumblr site where it's just all shots of Virgil sitting by himself, which is kind of disingenuous because you can find. I mean, I've done shows with the biggest names in wrestling, and you can find times where nobody's at the booth. But I mean, Virgil's kind of done it to himself, so I get it.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, first of all, thank you so much for, coming on here and talking to us for almost an hour.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. I mean, it's always fun to talk about wrestling and comics, and, it's always a good time.
Absolutely. So if you want to, can you go ahead and just rig back through all social media? We definitely want people to jump on board with this and support this, because this is an avenue for both wrestling and comic books.
Yeah, all of our social media is Headlocked Comic. It's one word. It's our Twitter. It's our Facebook. It's all run by me. So, if you have an interaction with somebody on there, you're talking to me. And then, like I say, go to Kickstarter.com and give a look to Headlock the Hard Way. We've got all kinds of stuff. We've got shirts and hoodies, and you can be drawn into the book as a wrestler at certain tiers. And that's one of my favorite things that we've the people that have helped the book the most are actually now a part of the book. Like, we probably have 12 characters in the book. Their facial likeness, they're fans of the book. So, it's just this giant grassroots thing that keeps going, and I just want to get it as big as I can so we can tell stories as long as we can, because there's so much to talk about in wrestling. It's such an amazing subculture. I mean, I can talk about it forever. I could end Headlock tomorrow if I had to. I mean, I know how it ends, but, I could write it forever too if people will let me. So, I hope people let me.
Yeah, definitely. I hope people do too, So, like I said, thank you again. It's been a legitimate pleasure and a legitimate having you on here. You need a podcast to make an appearance on Headlocked, just, where to find us. But
sure, absolutely.
But thank you again, Michael. It's been absolutely amazing. It's been fun to talk to you about not only comic books, but also wrestling, also the culture of wrestling, Not a lot of people dive into those topics because sometimes it's not a fun topic to talk about with people who kind of buy into the franchiseness of things. But like I said, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, hey man, you have fun. We'll probably have to have you come back on here in a month to give us an update about Headlocked, maybe when the Kickstarter ends and stuff, and see how you're going with that. But absolutely, thank you again. It's been fun. So have an awesome day. Hopefully, people will come see you this summer. People will go follow you on Facebook. I think me and Dave are coming to CTE too, so we might be able to see you there. But again, it's been fun, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. I'd love to do this again.
Come crack open a cold one and let Old Manser tell you a story.
King of Big Dog Style, Larriton Light Beer, the King of the Trailer Court, your favorite wrestler of mine, me.
This is Warner's Wisdom with Mance Warner.
All right, people, here we go. The red light is on. That means we're alive right here on another edition of Warner Wisdom with old Master himself. Y'all know me. You know all my nicknames. The king of big dog style. Mr. No Knee Pads Needed. The master of the pop-up headbutt. Larry, it's a light beer. You can buy that t-shirt over at Old Pro Wrestling Tees. Type in Mance Warner. Old Master. Buy a t-shirt. It'll get you laid. Make you look cool. It's a win-win, people. Now. This is another edition here of Warner's Wisdom, people. This is episode 275. I don't know what episode it is. I'm doing these every week now. Getting on the road, getting home, making towns, making paydays, hitting the pay window, doing my thing out here. Larry's light beer, headbutts, big boots, big old whoa, I can do left and right, people. That's what old Master does out here. Now, this is Dave Dynasty Show. The best part of the Dave Dynasty Show. My part of the Dave Dynasty Show. Old Master, Warner Wisdom, laying it on out here. Very thick for y'all to pay attention, learn, get a little knowledge. Take this knowledge and learn something. Show something. Go out there. Do what old Master tell you to do, people, and you will get over. Not just at the show, but in life, if you just listen to old Master out here, people. Now, on this edition right here, I was debating, do I answer questions that people sent here on the Twitter, on the Instagram, on the Facebook? Do I answer questions? I've done that a couple times. The problem with that right there is I had to go back and forth here on this telephone to look at the question, read the question, answer the question. I don't feel like doing that right now. I'm comfortable. I'm reclining in my recliner, sitting right here. My body's in pain. I'm feeling pretty good. I got my goodie bag. I got my fanny pack. I'm feeling nice. I'm riding the wave. I'm sitting here talking on the podcast to all you people out there. So I will not be answering the questions because it's too much clicking on this telephone. So, old Master is going to sit here, do a little freestyle, not rapping. I ain't going to be rapping. But if I did, I bet it'd be pretty good. And people would buy it. It'd be a number one hit. It'd be all over the world. People be listening to it. You would like it. I know I like it. Because it'd be my work. You know what I mean? My art out here for you people. Now I'm on a side tangent. Talk about me doing a freestyle. Ain't going to happen. What I am going to do, I'm going to freestyle on here and teach you people how to save some money on the road. I've done it before, but I feel like I need to go back to it. Dip my toes in the water a little bit more. Settle in. Let that water just drench over old Master's body. Get comfortable. Sit down in there. Make that water my home. That's my pool now. Kind of like what I do if I go to a hotel and they got a pool or a hot tub. Old Master just come jumping right in there, run everybody off, and then I could truly be free. Know what I mean? Now, what I'm saying is, I'm going to teach you people how to save some money on here. I'm going to go back to this topic because a lot of people still don't get it and they want to blow up all their money, blow all their paydays, blow all their t-shirt sales, blow all their 8x10s. 8x10s, Master got his. You come out to the show, buy 8x10. I autograph it. I get it to you. You can put it on your wall. You ladies, you can put it on your ceiling so you could look up and see old Master before you go to bed. Before you close them eyes of yours, you can see old Master on the ceiling. Good investment. Pretty good 8x10, I would say myself. Now, let me get into this topic here. Let me settle in here and teach y'all a little bit of something, a little bit of wisdom, old Master could say. And this is going to be more based on, because I've taught y'all how to sell your t-shirts, save your money, don't be going up in the gas station buying all kinds of stuff. You just follow me here. Follow me here, people. And I'll take y'all to the promised land now. You will learn something here. Number one. Numero uno. Old Master likes to go into the gas stations. Go in there late at night. I've been driving all night. I need a little pick-me-up. I need a cup of joe. I need some coffee. So old Master roll up in there. And I don't go in there and just get a cup of coffee. I go in there and I find me a seat somewhere. All these gas stations out here, the Pilots or really any of them, you're going to find a seat in there somewhere, right? So old master will sit down, and I'll wait till I see some people moving around, some employees, maybe a manager here or there. And then old master, is very simple what I do. I act like I'm trying to get up out of my chair, and I just start screaming. Oh, Lord, Jesus Christ, help me now. I've done it. I can't get up my back. Oh, my Lord, my back. My legs, my knees, my elbow, my neck. Oh, it's all just gone to hell. I start just screaming as loud as I can. And old master starts just screaming and yelling, and then they come rushing over and they go, Sir, what's happened? Do we need to call a paramedic? I go, No. Don't do that. Don't do none of that. I think all I need is a cup of Joe. Just a little cup of Joe here. Always works. Never ever not worked. They give me a free cup of coffee. Half the time they know I'm just in there working. I'm just full of shit. I'm just screaming. They know it. I know it. It don't matter. It's still fun either way. I'm having a good time. But the key of it is you gotta be super loud. You gotta freak everybody out. You do it right. People are going to just run out there because they're going to be scared and they're going to go, oh, Jesus, Lord Almighty, I don't know what's going on over here, but I got to get out of this gas station. That's fine. I got no shame to my game, people. Old master is trying to get his coffee on. So, yeah, I just start screaming. They know the routine. Sometimes I go into these Pilots, these village pantries, I can't think of the name of these. They're all the same to me. All the gas stations are the same. I go in there with one thing on my mind. I'm going to get me a coffee, baby. Sometimes I go in and they already know. They go, oh, master, here he goes. And before I even get to, I go, huh! They already got my coffee. They're already sitting me out there. They're just like, just hit the road, bud. Hit the road, bozo. It's cool with me, man. I got no shame to my game. I got me a coffee. I put my sugars in there. Put my cream in there. I'm good to go. I'm on the road, people. That's tip number 1. Go in there, sit in the chair, start screaming. My back, oh, Jesus. You get coffee. This is the way it goes. I've been doing it for 25 years. Now, number 2. Some people want to go do fast food and they blow all their payday at these fast food joints. I see it every week. Old master does something a little different. I go to drive-thru. I order just one thing. But it just sounds like gibberish to them. Because old master is talking super fast. I'm yelling wackadoo. I'm screaming, hooting and hollering, raising all kind of cane in the drive-thru. Now, master just freaks them out again. They don't know what I ordered. But they give me something. Whatever it is, I take it. Dollar menu, give them $1. Now I start to leave. I roll back through. I go, y'all forgot this and this. At this point, they've already had to deal with me for 10 minutes because I've been acting a fool up in there. So they just give me whatever. I'm on my way. So right there, I've got me a coffee. I got me a little dinner. And I ain't had to spend nothing more than $1. $1. $1 right there for old master. That's it. Beautiful. This is America, people. You got to start going out there and getting what you want. Okay. Number 3 is something I learned a long time ago. You on the road, make sure you get some ramen noodle. Any flavor will do, whatever you like. Don't matter to me. Go to old Dollar General, ODG, get you a couple packs of the ramen noodles. I think you get about 10 of them for $1.15. Boom, right there. Got your ramen noodle. You also have your water. Always got a big old jug of water. Old master always got his big old jug of water. People always complain about it and they go, master, your water look like it's dirty, it's yellow. That's just hard water, people. Got good minerals in there. It's good for you. It's good for your blood. Good for your body. Make sure you don't get sick. That's what that water, it builds up your immune system out there, people. You guys all want to filter water and you want your cool little jugs and I'm going to go to Walmart and I'm going to spend $2 to get a refill my water every 2. You're a fool, man. I use tap water. It's good. Ain't nothing wrong with it. Now, so you got your jug of water, right? You got your ramen noodles. Roll up in the gas station. Pour a little water in a jug, throw it in the microwave, right? Throw your noodles in there. Also, when you're at DG, Dollar General, you got to get some tuna fish, or you get canned chicken. Costs about $1. Dollar General, y'all better just start sponsoring Old Master, because I'm putting you guys over left or right out here. Putting you over on the boards, putting you over on the podcast, putting you over on the Facebook, the Instagram, the Twitter, putting you over for old Meltzer. Even though I hate Meltzer's guts, I hate old Sam Roberts, I hate both them pieces of... Okay, I got to calm down. I get too worked up. It's too late at night. I'm killing my buzz out here. Killing my mood right now. Got to get back into the ebb and the flow of what I'm talking about. Got to get calmed down here for a second now. Okay, let me get back to teaching y'all how to make this beautiful prison slam, baby. Got your noodles. Correctamundo. Got your water in your big old jug. Right? Got your canned chicken. Got your tuna fish. Maybe you got both of them. Maybe there's a deal at Dollar General this week. Come on now, I'm putting you over again. Either way, you got some sort of protein you're throwing in with your old carbs there, in with your noodles, right? Got your heated up water. You put in your sauce packet in the gas station that you're hitting up every week. Go in there and take a couple of them mayonnaise packets, maybe a little mustard, maybe a little sweet relish, whatever you want. Throw that in with your noodles. Mix that all up, right? Maybe you got some corn chips. Maybe you got some barbecue corn chips. You could pick up a sweet, nice off-brand one, because Old Master only gets the off-brand products, baby. It's cheaper and it tastes just the same. You got to be smart. You want making a pro wrestling, people. You got to be smart, man. Now, get your chips, crumple them up, smash them all up, step on. Put the boots to them tater chips, man. Them corn chips. The Doritos, the Fritos, the Eatos family, whatever it may be. Then you throw that on top of your noodles and your meat and your sauces, and you mix that all up. Boom. You got a whole bunch of calories. You got your protein, got your carbs. Maybe you go back to that gas station on the way back after the show, and that's where you get your coffee, right? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there, freestyling for all y'all out there. It is what it is, people. It's about saving money and making money. Saving money, making money. Saving money, making money. Then at some point, maybe you retire. Old Master will never retire. I'm going to be out there bumping around when I'm 89 years old. Now, I taught y'all my coffee trick. I taught y'all my drive-through trick at the old... wherever you go, whatever restaurant you hitting up at that time. The old ramen noodle, the old prison jailhouse slam. Cook that up. Man, you just cook that all day long. That's a cheap meal. Get all your calories in, people. It's good for you, man. It's good for you. I think we're going to call it a night on that. I can't give y'all all the tips at one time, because why would you come back and listen to Old Master? I done gave you all the wisdom I got. Now, go ahead. Put this on the Instagram, the Facebook, the Twitter, all the such. Tweet it out, retweet it on the Twitter, on SoundCloud. You go there, listen to it. You listen to it on YouTuber. You got to know the routine. You know where to listen to Old Master. I'll be putting up them great, beautiful promos for all y'all every week too. You listen to those. Something else I was gonna say. Oh, someone need to hit up old Smart Mark or old RF Video and tell him, put Old Master over, man. Put me on there. Give me old talking show. Give me old talking show, man. Sit out there and interview people. Go over to an extended Warner's wisdom, one could say, right? Where I can just say whatever I want on the video screen, people. Until then, hit up all Pro Wrestling Tees. Buy yourself a Larry to Lightbeard t-shirt. I got beautiful 8x10s with my beautiful face on there, my mug. You can buy that. Until then, we're going to have another edition of Warren's Wisdom every week on the Dave Dynasty Show. The best part of Dave Dynasty Show. Dave's pretty good. I'm just saying. Match is pretty good too, man. Just a little bit better than Dave. Some will say, you know what I mean? Until then, go ahead, follow this, Instagram this, tweet this, retweet it, watch it, like it, whatever y'all want to do. Y'all know the routine. Next week, same time, same place, Old Mancer, King of Big Dog Style, Larry to Lightbeer, signing out on this one. I'm going to enjoy these good vibes getting sent my way, entering my body. They're in my blood now, and I'm feeling pretty good. Until next time, Old Mancer. We'll see y'all on the video screen, or the video screen, on the earbuds, Earbud City, whatever y'all want to call it. Till then, night, you dummies.
Visit our friends at the Masked Republic. Go to luchaloot.com and luchashop.com and use the promo code DYNASTY for exclusive discounts.
And welcome back to the Dave Dynasty Show.
What's up?
Yeah.
How about that interview, though?
Yeah, that's all right.
I mean,
little interviewing, little wisdom.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun because, I mean, I like all the interviews I do, but this one was pretty cool. He talked a lot about a little bit of everything. He talked about comic books. We sat there and talked a little bit about comic books, and he's got some very strong opinions about people who watch wrestling. My favorite quote from the thing was he said, if you watch WWE and you only watch WWE, you're not a wrestling fan. You're a WWE fan, which I think is a little harsh, but I can kind of see where he's coming from.
I think you're still a wrestling fan. You're just maybe a subset of wrestling fan.
Yeah.
If you're a broader wrestling fan where you like more than, there's just that. I think if you're a WWE fan, you're still a wrestling fan. You're just a subset of wrestling. But
that's
but it's okay. Like we've always talked about, there's different approaches.
Exactly.
People like different things, and some people just like that mainstream WWE. They like, and that's okay. It's not really a right or wrong. It's an opinion thing. And thankfully, there's something out there for everybody.
Exactly.
So it's a good deal. But but everybody's entitled to their opinions and their approach to the business. That's what makes one of the things that makes wrestling so great. There's so many different angles to getting into it, or to being a fan, or to what you watch and how you view it. There's so many different views, so many different aspects. It's one of the coolest things. It's very, very cool. So. But yeah, let's real quick plug some of the upcoming shows that we like to support. Just the usuals here. Every Thursday in Jeffersonville, Indiana, you can check out IWA Mid-South. Every Saturday, you can check them out in Memphis, Indiana. Rockstar Pro Wrestling every Wednesday in Dayton, Ohio. Ohio Valley Wrestling every Wednesday in Louisville, Kentucky. WCWO every Friday in Indianapolis, Indiana. And for my fellow Lucha fans, you can watch CMLL every Monday and Tuesday on YouTube, and every Friday on ClaroSports.com.
Claro Sports.
We got, hopefully this week, we will be dropping the Death of Bruisers or Brody episode.
Yep.
We have high plans to record that in the next couple of days. Next week, we'll have the Iron Demon, Shane Mercer, on as a guest.
Sure will.
Interview with him. So we got some cool stuff coming out. Make sure you, again, visit us at DaveDynasty.com for all of our sponsor links. Go visit them, order some stuff, help them out. They're supporting the business, and support them. But you can also find links to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure you visit all those. And if you want to send us any feedback, you can do it. The best way to do it is on Twitter, but if you'd like to email us, you can do so at dave@davedynasty.com. I think that wraps up another episode.
I think so.
I think we're good. I'm kind of tired today. Kind of just feeling the flow, not feeling the toe. Good interview with Michael Kingston. A little wisdom from Mance Warner. Go visit all the sponsors. Go visit all the social media for the website. And most of all, get out there and support pro wrestling in whatever way you like it and whatever method you like it. Anything else, Isaac? What's your Twitter again? Throw your Twitter out there.
Pint Size Bees. That's Twitter and Instagram. I'm trying to post more on Instagram. I'm doing better about Twitter, but Instagram's pretty dead.
Yeah. Well, we wouldn't expect too much from you, so get out there, give him a hard time on social media. But yeah, we're always retweeting cool stuff, posting stuff. But yeah, thanks for your support. Some of these recent episodes, the listeners have gone up. We've had some good stuff with the, we had some good interviews here lately with Mandy Fernandez, Scott Romer, the Brian Pillman interview, the Von Erichs Garza. Lots of good stuff. Michael Kingston's interview today was no different. So until the next episode, which will hopefully be the Death of Bruiser Brody.
Yep.
Followed next Monday by the Shane Mercer interview. We are out of here. I am Dave Dynasty.
And I'm Ike Isaacs.
Be good, be safe, and keep on growing. We'll see ya.